Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, August 6th Conservation Hearing. At this point in time, I'd like to remind people, if you have electronic devices, please silence them or turn them off. Okay? Also, we're going to be doing this, there's RDAs come first, and then notices of intent, there's going to be a presentation. So the agenda's going to move fairly quick. If you'd like to make a comment, you're more than welcome to do so, but you have to go up to the podium and announce yourself and address the board. Outside of that, I think we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. The beginning of this, where it says to vote July 30th minutes, I'm going to postpone that because we do not have a records keeper. I don't want to take that. The next is other business, and it's a discussion on the Brevogel parking area.
Good evening. This plan, I'm Jessica Rittenauer, 300 Committee Land Trust Administrator, and this plan for the Brevogel Conservation Area was actually approved by the Commission in March of this year. It was designed by Scott Schluter of the town's engineering division. So the discussion tonight is about the actual grant funding that's needed to complete the project. And what the 300 Committee is hoping to do is to get permission to work with the Conservation Commission to submit a grant application to the Barnstable County Land Management Grant Program. This project would be eligible under their Recreational Access Program. One of their priorities this year for the Barnstable County grant funding is to improve public access to public conservation lands. So the amount of money needed in terms of materials is $3,000, and that's from the budget that the DPW put together. The reason why the parking lot is needed is because the current access to Brevogel Conservation Area is through the entrance to the leaf compost facility. And when that gate is closed, folks cannot access the Brevogel Conservation Area. What we hope to do in the long term is to improve the public access so that more residents and visitors will use the property. Down the road, we are going to be investing restoration funds. There's $40,000 that was set aside for the restoration. At this point in time, the ATV use is running rampant throughout the property. So a primary goal, improving public access, encouraging people to go there, walk the site, and getting more activity there before we move forward with the restoration plan. So that would be coming to you down the road. And hopefully we can move forward this year with the parking area. The next group that we're visiting with is the Board of Selectmen. Monday they have to review and approve any request for grants on town land, and the Finance Committee as well.
Thank you.
So basically, Jessica, you're asking for the board to vote to be a partner with the 300 Committee. We have to be the applicant on the grant.
That's exactly right.
We have to be the Conservation Commission has to be the applicant on this particular grant. So the 300 Committee is asking that you be, they'll help us put the grant together
Right.
and submit it.
Okay. Any discussion on the board?
The Cape Botany Club has found Plymouth Gentian somewhere on their site. Do you know where that population is?
I don't, but I know that Pam Poloni does, because she led that
Pam Poloni
effort
was the one who found it. So
to do the inventory.
coordinate with her just to make sure you're out of harm's way there.
Right.
Is there
Cool, Mario.
any
I haven't
other?
seen that plant since I did work
It's,
way
not,
back when
it's,
down
it's very
in
rare in
Falmouth.
Falmouth.
Yeah, it is.
It's very rare in Falmouth.
Are there any other concerns or questions on the board?
No concerns. I think there's a clear public purpose here, though. That
Okay. At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to support the 300 Committee and be the applicant on the
Support or partner with?
partner with.
I make a motion to partner with the 300 Committee to apply for grants
Okay.
on this particular project.
Second.
Okay. Having that, I'll open it up to the audience. Is there anyone here that has any questions or concerns about this project? Okay. Just so that everyone is familiar with that, that's how a lot of these things are going to go tonight. there'll be a motion and then a second. We won't close the hearings or other things. It's just how it goes. Don't think that we're gonna not let people talk. All right, now that we have the motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous? So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll get you a letter for next Monday.
Okay, excellent.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right,
Make it time.
next is request for determination of applicability. This is a lesser of the permitting. This is going off of staff's recommendations. A negative determination is what you want to hear. A positive determination is something that initiates a different type of permit. The RDA, you want to have a negative determination. First up is W.S. Schultz Company, Inc., parcel 53 School Street, Woods Hole, Mass., for permission to replace elevator walkway support posts with new 4-inch by 6-inch posts, repair brackets connecting 2 floats, reinstall loose boards, and other incidental repairs, all work by hand.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff has reviewed the project. We're recommending a negative 200 and state in the bylaw that the resource area is not confirmed.
So moved.
We have-
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion from the board? Is there any discussion from the audience on this project? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Next is Robert and Jill West, 380 Wild Harbor Road, North Falmouth, for permission to remove the existing sewage disposal system and replace with a new Title V sewage disposal system.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until August 20th.
I'd entertain a motion.
Move to continue the RDA at the request of the applicant to August 20th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this continuance? Is there any discussion about this project from the audience? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Next is John Rice, 45 Toby Lane, East Falmouth, Mass., for permission to license the existing pier structure under grandfathering to acquire Chapter 91 licensing.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, the information we needed to evaluate the application was dropped off this afternoon. The staff did not get a chance to review that. So our recommendation at this point would be a +3 unless the applicant would like a continuance.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant, John Rice and Robert Rice. They're both here this evening. We're prepared to request a continuance. The only reason we wanted to do it in person instead of in writing, because I think there's some value to the Rices to just make a brief comment to give you some history on the dock. I know these are supposed to be extremely brief by design, so we'll take 5 minutes or so or less. The reason we're here, and we will, if you think necessary, and it would be reasonable if you needed a continuance to look at the added photos we submitted. The reason we're here at all under an IDA is to complete a process through Chapter 91 to license an existing unlicensed seasonal dock. The Chapter 91 folks won't consider the application complete unless you have some acknowledgement from the Conservation Commission that the dock either received permits or is so old that permits weren't necessary. And the RDA process is a mechanism to do that. We submitted initially some aerial photos and some family photos that demonstrated it existed prior to August of '78. And then Mr. Kasperzik asked us to provide some additional photos through the subsequent years to show that it was continuously used and it was in the same general configuration and alignment. Those are the new photos that we were only able to get to you this afternoon after research, going through boxes of old photos, slides and everything else. So we hope that the original photos in those photos, some of which are aerials from Google Earth, will prove that. There's no work proposed on the structure. We also submitted a letter of attestation from Don App. He's the president of the Toby Land Association, that indicates the dock's been there since '78, been in continuous use, same configuration, etc. So with that, I'll turn it over, and I know staff hasn't reviewed the photos, but I thought it was important, since the Rices had planned to travel, that they be given an opportunity to speak instead of waiting till the continuance to do it.
Please, you're
Thanks.
here, just, let's, please be brief.
Thank you very much. Just to say, my family's been,
Could you just announce yourself?
yes,
please?
my name's John Rice.
Thank you.
My family's been residents here in Falmouth since 1941. My dad bought the house. I'm 61 myself, and I can't remember a time the dock hasn't been there, and it has always been the same because my brother and I have been putting it in and putting it out every year when we were young. So in the packet that you'll see, there are photos starting, I think, in 1964, all the way up to current time. I think you'll see photos in every single decade, multiple photos. And many of them are time-stamped, some of them are in 3D. And so hopefully when you review that, you can sort of get an idea of what we've been able to do. I think one of the things that we're particularly proud about is that if you look at the early photos, you'll see that, when I grew up there was like a beach there around the dock, and now it's completely covered with the eelgrass, and so that you could see that the environment, we've been very, I think, good stewards about keeping the dock to not interrupt, what's there environmentally. So I think that's a good thing, and it's a seasonal dock, and just appreciate it when you review that. If you have any questions, please ask, but I think you'll see it's very comprehensive in terms of the photos that we've given there. Sorry it took a little bit late, but I just didn't hear about it till Friday. I went through 25 boxes over the weekend to put a presentation together for you, and hopefully the next hearing we can answer any other questions that you have.
Thank you. At this point in time, my understanding is that we have a recommendation from staff for a positive determination, or the applicant would be amenable to a continuance. Not seeing any of the photos, listening to the testimony, which is now part of the record.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request a continuance. I just had assuming, I haven't heard anything from staff about anything other than demonstrating grandfathering provisions. There's no work proposed on the dock, so we're hopeful that that's the only issue. That's the only one we know about now, is demonstrating that we have shown the proof of the seasonal use through the years and grandfathering.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to evaluate the photos. There may be an issue that comes up, Mike.
Yep.
While looking at the photos, we don't know, so I can't say it's
No, I know.
only evaluating the photos.
Sure, but as of right now, that's all.
We need to evaluate that,
Mhm.
make sure it didn't change or anything.
Sure.
So
As of right
give us a
now,
little time to look through them.
as of right now, that's all we know is an issue. So if we could have the 20th, that would be great, since it should be simple.
I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion to continue to August 20th.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion from the board? Is there any discussion on this project in the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next is Wendy Vogel, 36 Captain Davis Lane, East Falmouth, Mass., for permission to vista prune.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending a negative terms of state and bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed, provided that the pruning be done in accordance with your regulations under FWR 1018, the vista pruning regulations, that the vista window be located in the east-northeast portion of the property and completed by a certified arborist, and they will need to meet with the staff prior to performing the work.
Okay. Is the applicant aware of that?
I believe so.
Okay. One moment.
Follows any vista pruning. All
Okay.
your vista pruning projects are under, in accordance with your regs.
Okay.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any discussion from the board about this? At this point, open it up. Is there any discussion about this project in the audience? Just come up and identify yourself, please.
I'm Wendy Vogel, the property owner. I got an email that said just what Jennifer said, except it did not specify the east-northeast corner. Is that,
Mark said the vista window should be located closer to the east-northeast corner because that area is already fairly open. I
okay,
haven't been to the site, so I'm basing that on the recommendations that Mark gave. So he's obviously visited your property and
He
felt that
has,
this area
yep.
was a nice open area that you could maximize your vista window through.
okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this project? All right, seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Now we're going on to request for hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. I'm not going to memorize that. First is the Town of Falmouth, 650 Gifford Street, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a new 8 million gallon day water capacity water treatment plant, raw water pump station, raw water intake to abandon and reconfigure water mains at the existing Long Pond pump station and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll save any of my projects until after the applicant's presentation.
Thank you.
Only to remind the board that you do have a site visit with the applicant next Monday to review the site.
Thank you.
3 o'clock?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mario.
All right, I think we need to get one more light. Oh, that, I don't know about.
No,
You mean a little,
I need an engineer.
you're making it worse, Mara.
That, that switch might be over there.
Good evening and welcome to the world of lights.
That's good, works for me. Good evening, my name is Patrick O'Neill. I'm with Tate and Howard Engineers, and we're the design engineer for this water treatment project for the town of Falmouth. As you identified in the notice, the town intends to construct an 8 million gallon a day water treatment plant to treat the Long Pond surface water supply. Probably don't have to tell you it's badly needed, long awaited. The site, yep. The site is on Gifford Street, which is here. This is just north of Goodwill Park on the west side of Gifford. This is a 40-acre parcel. We had it surveyed by Sebacia Inc., our wetlands consultant. There are no wetland resource areas on the parcel other than the frontage on Long Pond Bank. And we did go and look at the bordering parcels, and there is a wetland and vernal pool at this location close to the pond. The work itself involves access off Gifford Street. We're going to utilize the existing cart path as the access way to limit clearing, although that has to be an improved paved road for emergency access to the treatment plant here. From the plant area to the raw water pump station and intake located on the pond shore will be a gravel road, but again, improved and widened a bit for emergency access. We did meet with the fire department to go over their requirements for both access roads 2 weeks ago. So the plant itself is located here, treatment plant building, discharge lagoons for sludge holding and dewatering, a loop road around the plant, underground storage tanks. All the stormwater on site will be infiltrated on the parcel, no runoff. And additionally, the roof runoff will be directly infiltrated through infiltration basins below grade on this end of the project. So as far as the overall site, no impacts to resource areas, but this entire site is within priority habitat for the eastern box turtle. And we have filed with MESA and had conversations with them about a mitigation plan, which you may have seen in the application. And we spoke with Jesse at Natural Heritage as early as last week to talk about implementation of the plan. That plan includes silt fence, which is shown in orange around the entire work area, which will isolate the area for the work. Once that isolation barrier is put up prior to construction, we will engage Oxbow Associates, who is an expert in the turtle habitats and identification. They will survey the site to identify any turtles and relocate them. In addition, prior to construction, Oxbow will be giving training to all the construction staff on identification of the species, photos and the like, so that if any species come into the work area, he will be notified, Oxbow, and they will relocate the animals. And this protocol has been used on other sites, and Natural Heritage has approved it. So they're reviewing the plan as well as you at this time, and that applies to all the work areas around the site. The silt fence will also be used, obviously, to prevent silt migration off the site during construction. As far as just an update on other permitting that has happened on the site, working with Mass Historical Commission, they required an intensive archaeological survey of the site, which was completed last month, and they did not find any archaeological resources on the property. We also contacted the Federal Fish and Wildlife regarding federally listed endangered species, and they identified that there are none located on the site. Other permits that have been filed, and if copies have not been submitted yet, they should be en route to your office. Army Corps for the intake work in the pond. It's a Category 1 general permit, work within the navigable waterway. It's a notification process only for Category 1. There is no permit issued for that. Also submitted to Mass DEP under the dredging program because of the work in the pond. And that's under the 401 water quality certification. Also filed with Mass DEP under the Chapter 91 waterway license for work within a great pond, which is what Long Pond is classified as. Also filed with Mass DEP under watershed management for MPDES permit. The work on the raw water pump station located here. See if I can get this to the paints. A little closer detail. This is the pond shore in blue, the raw water pump station, that wetland we spoke of. From the pump station into the pond, there's 3 pipelines. There's 2 24-inch raw water intake pipes, going to 2 separate screens. This provides 2 levels of intake for the new treatment plant, improving water quality and reliability of the intakes. There's a 3rd line that goes to both screens, and those are air lines that go to the screens for cleaning purposes, so that people don't have to go out and clean the screens in the pond. So the pump station work, the pump station is about 30 feet deep. Groundwater is about 10 feet, so we have dewatering to accomplish. So the MPDES permits are for the dewatering. Our intent is that it'll be a well point system around a sheathed excavation for the pump station. The well point startup, once they're installed, the intent is to pump the well points to the uplands to the east, because when you pump them initially, you will get a lot of silt, so they're developed. Once they're developed, we will connect to a frac tank located next to the existing gravel road along the pond, the cart path. It'll go from the frac tank, which will collect sediments, if there are any left or any pass through. It'll go into a detention basin. It'll be lined, surrounded by hay bales. There should be no silt passing the frac tank, but this basin also gives us a visual indication before the water is discharged to the pond. From that basin, it'll be hard piped down to the pond shore, and on the pond shore, there will be a diffuser to diffuse the flow so it doesn't cause any turbulence or sediments to be stirred up in the pond. So that discharge under the Mass DEP Watershed Management has been approved, and I have a copy. So it just came by email today. So approved by DEP. That filing also goes to EPA, and EPA will act on it now that DEP has issued their approval of the discharge.
If I may, just for my own satisfaction, I'm writing this down. I wanted to ask you later, but since you've been so intent on describing the end of that, what's the flow of that, estimated flow coming out of that discharge?
Dewatering, 1,000 gallons a minute. There'll be quite a bit of water about to move.
Okay. Thank you.
And the remaining permits to be filed are related to the treatment plant itself, DEP water supply, approval to construct the treatment facility, and that'll go through the SRF approval process, because this project is funded under the SRF program, and the DEP water supply group, and also approval of new technology for the treatment processes in the facility. So the work before you is generally related to this area. There's really 2 parts to it. We're still in the design phase at about 75%, but this is pretty much locked in as far as what we're doing here and at the plant. We're just doing the detailed design inside the plant. But the thing we still need to do is do borings in the pond where the intake's going. The directional drill, which will be used to install these, we need to confirm the soils where that drill line's going in order to make sure they can accomplish how that's going to be done. And the reason we're doing with directional drilling, there's pretty much just 2 methods to get these pipes from the pump station to the pond. You either open cut with cofferdams, dewatering, open excavation, which is very disruptive but a little cheaper, or you directional drill. Public Works advised us to go with this methodology. It's much less disruptive to the pond shore and the pond itself. And with that, the drilling apparatus will actually be located back here for construction, so you'll see on the overall site plan, we have to clear a little bit of trees on the east side of the cart path, because they have to start drilling back, and then by the time they pass the pump station, as you can see in the profile, they have to be down 20 feet. This profile shows you the profile of the bottom of the pond, the two major intake lines. So they're drilled from land into the pond, and then the pipe is actually fused together in one long piece, floated onto the pond, and then pulled back to land. So it's less disruptive, obviously, to the pond and also to the pond shore. With the work going on in the pond, we have proposed a turbidity curtain, which is located here, to encircle all the work area in the pond. That's pretty much a plastic curtain, floats on a float with a chain weight at the bottom, hangs vertically, so that if there is any disturbance of silts, they don't migrate across the pond. We're also proposing that the in-pond work be done in the winter period, not sure of the timing of the months, but it's a time when the pond is used less as a water supply, so there's less chance of impacting it as the water supply for the town. So that part for the borings, we need to initiate quickly in order to get our design into Mass DEP under the SRF program by October 1st. So we need to go forward with the borings. To do the borings, we need to put a barge onto the pond. That barge will have a small drill rig on it to drill the borings. It'll be launched from the existing pump station parking lot by crane into the pond. We're requiring that all equipment that comes into the pond be steam cleaned before it's brought to the site. Also, no gas motors in the pond. There'll either be electric motors to push the equipment around or an airboat, which has been used on the pond in the past for algae treatment. So the barge goes out. They'll drill 4 borings, as you see on the drawings here. They'll be drilled in the casing so that the soils don't go into the water. They come up to the surface. They're collected by the drillers and brought back to shore and disposed of after they're reviewed for the soil types. So that's kind of the first part of it. The remainder is all of the construction activities, which, as we've discussed, is pretty major. So you have the raw water pump station, the dewatering. We'll have, again, the silt fence around the perimeter of the construction area. Kind of covers the bulk of it. Glad to take questions. So let me go a little further, and then this might answer some questions. One other piece, I'm sorry. This is a plan of the existing Long Pond pump station. So when the new plant goes online, this will pretty much be abandoned but left in place. It's historical buildings, and it's a very fine facility for the town in the future. So it'll remain. But there's piping in the yard here, and as you can tell by this old drawing, there is a lot of piping in the yard. But some of it has to be disconnected because we don't want the live pipes now going into a facility that no longer needs them. So we'll be doing some isolated excavations in the paved parking area here to cap the old pipes after the new plant's online. This is Grew's Pond, Long Pond to the east. The wetlands line obviously are close along the bank of each. And we've proposed silt fence between the work parking area, basically, and the pond. All these will be very short duration excavations and backfill, and then the parking lot will be repaved when it's done. Silt curtain, what it looks like, hangs in the pond like that. It looks like this, float on the top. It is designed to reach the bottom of the pond within a foot or so. and then it's weighted to keep it in place vertically. These are the type of screens, these T-screens, 2 of them will go in the pond. They'll actually be mounted on a concrete base that'll sit on the pond bottom. When these are installed, again, it's a barge operation. A barge will be put onto the pond with divers. These would pre-assembled on land, including their concrete base, put onto the barge, floated out, and lowered into place with a crane. There'll be divers in the pond that'll clear the area where they're going to sit, and they will also make the pipe connections between the screen and the plastic pipe that's directional drill. Failing me now. Oops. This is a typical directional drill rig. This stem is what does the drilling. The drill head is fairly small. It looks like that. It rotates. They guide this from the starting point, from the land surface, and they track it both directionally, left and right, and for depth. So they know exactly where it is, and they need to hit the spot as it comes by the pump station, and also where it exits into the pond. And they locate it all the way. We have to do a small clearing between the pump station and the pond so they can track it. They will put a dinghy on the pond and continue to track it to its point of termination at the screens. This is just how it enters. There's a small pit at the drilling point where the drill bit enters. This is how the pipe looks. It's fused, butt fused on land, floated out on the pond. In this case, this was a ground surface installation, but it'll be floated out onto the pond and then pulled in from the pond side towards the land. And we're proposing a diffuser such as this for the discharge point for the dewatering. These are used on fire hydrants, so they can take a large flow rate, and what it does, it diffuses the flow in 2 directions to slow it down to prevent scouring. This will be located on the pond shore on a plywood base so that when the flow hits this, it flows to the plywood and then slows it down before it goes into the pond. I think that's it. Thank you.
I'm going to turn some lights on. Jen, do you have any?
Patrick, do you have a proposed construction? Like, for the, what I'm talking about is the natural heritage area. Do you know when you're gonna start clearing that site, or?
The way the process works with SRF, we submit in October. We have to wait for them to approve. The best case is start construction next February. One of the items we are under discussion with Jesse from Natural Heritage is the active season for the turtles is March through November, if you correct me if I'm wrong. So the pre-screening really wants to be done when the turtles are active, so you can find them. So we're looking at doing the isolation barrier in the fall prior to November this year. Have it screened by Oxbow. That way it's ready for the spring construction and we don't have to worry about.
That's what I was thinking, when they bury themselves underground and then they come up and that construction's going on. Okay.
Right, so we're going over the details
Yeah.
of that with Jesse right
I'm
now.
sure Natural Heritage will take care of that, I was just curious. And you said you needed 4 additional borings on the pond,
Yes.
and those are 9, 10, 11, 12 of them? Where are you gonna do them?
Boring,
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Start to my left, John.
Can you just describe a little bit about the dewatering? That's going back into the pond, and you have a structure that it's set up to deflect, and, but it's going, is it going back into the area where you have the silt capturing device set up? Or
Correct. The discharge point is within the silt curtain,
Okay,
right, approximately here.
okay,
But it will be within the silt curtain.
okay. And the other thing I was wondering about is you're talking about putting something down to stabilize the bank in one area. Wasn't sure if you were talking about that with this proposal, some kind of a fabric to stabilize the bank.
In this basin here, we will put, there's a filter fabric, probably supported by straw bales, just to keep everything in place to discharge into. Then the overflow from that will go.
Is that
to
just
the
like a
pond.
landscaping fabric?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
And then this basin, in the end, will be retained, and the roof runoff from the pump station will be retained and infiltrated in that same basin.
I gotcha.
But in a natural way, everything else will be removed, the filter fabric and all that.
Yes, it'll be
Long gone, it'll just be-
revegetated, and
just
it'll
be a
just become
swale
a
to-
bio area for infiltration, correct.
That's good, yep.
Mike?
For the size of the project, the concerns before this commission are relatively small. I believe if the site had been staked, we'd close it tonight. I wish that was the case. I have not concerns, but your construction dewatering, you're probably going to get some induced infiltration from that town, from the pond backwards. The water's been flowing from land to Oak Pond, and when you turn those pumps on, you're pulling it back. And there's a fair chance you're going to see iron bacteria develop. I want to be sure that your dewatering method over there, you're thinking about it before it starts to develop. That's,
Understood.
I didn't see anything. The sediments are short-lived if it's perfectly done, but that iron bacteria can really get out of control if you don't.
It's fairly short duration, I mean, relatively speaking, probably going to run for over a month. But we are located
A million and a half gallons a day.
Oh, yeah, it's,
It doesn't take many pounds of iron to create a real problem.
understood.
So I guess those are my two comments. Walking the site, if you'd shown the test pits that are out there on a plan, it would have made it easier. I mean, quite frankly, I was lost part of the time. And it's a beautiful piece of property. I'm not complaining because I got to walk in the woods that I wouldn't get most summer. But if I knew exactly where I was looking, I would have felt better. No other comments.
Okay. Russ?
No questions.
Mary?
No questions, thank you.
Mario?
I think there's overall public benefit to this. The BMPs are excellent. I think it's going to result in improved water quality in Long Pond. So, I mean, from that standpoint. I only had a question about, of course, the box turtle. And I thought if you read the response from the Natural Heritage Program, usually they just come out and say, no, there's no take. End of story. They didn't say that this time. It seemed ambiguous. If you read the letter, it sounded like they wanted more information. And, the box turtle is not a wetland turtle, it's a tortoise. It's an upland species. And that's where a lot of the road improvement and everything is going to take place. And there's plenty of habitat out there. Yep, plenty of habitat. But you brought up the idea of having a biologist do a pre-construction survey, which I think that's the way to go. And Bob Gray certainly knows the box turtle well. You could have him or somebody else out there. What happens if you find a turtle? What are you gonna do with it?
The protocol in the past has been, if it's one of the field personnel, they notify us as the engineer, and we notify Oxbow, and they will send one of their staff out, and Oxbow is just our particular consultant for these species, and Sebastian and Bob Gray is our wetlands consultant for the project. And they send the personnel out, they'll take the critter, log where it was found, information, and then he'll relocate it and notify Natural Heritage that it happened.
So we're just talking about picking them up and moving them somewhere outside.
Yeah,
the limit
summer
area.
home or something, or, yeah, someplace safe. I mean, it's all habitat, so there's plenty of other property.
Oh, you got acres of habitat up there.
Yeah.
There's a question about it.
To your comment on the plan and the questions, Jesse from Natural Heritage had some questions. They will be issuing a letter by Monday, so by Monday we'll work out the details of the schedule with them, and I believe they will issue a non-take decision based on our discussion so far.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well,
One more.
please.
Pat, down by the water's edge, you have an area, looking at 1 to 20 scale, you have an area of like around 20 feet cleared. Is that enough for you guys to work down there?
Oops, sorry. This 20-foot path here,
No, down on the water's edge, along that way.
here.
Yeah.
We're not doing any work down there, other than providing
You
access.
said you had to bring the pipe down to the water's edge, and then you're gonna have a dinghy coming, I'm assuming you're launching the dinghy that has to guide the pipe from the existing pump station?
Oh, this is more than enough. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
the pipe will be strung, it'll be fairly long, so the pipe will
I
be
was just
strung
curious.
up the hill, like in this direction. And then we tried to limit this clearing on the bank as much as we could, but
I'm just all about giving people room to work, so
Yeah.
I wanna know exactly what's gonna be cleared. And again, the dinghy will be launched, I'm assuming, from the pump station, where the barge is gonna be.
Yes.
Yeah, all your boats and everything. Okay.
Well, couple questions for me. I'm glad to see the choice of directional drilling. It's if it fits in the budget, it's a benefit for everybody. Your borings, you anticipate being able to do the directional drilling? Your impression that these borings are just gonna satisfy your methodology that you've promoted? If you, for some odd reason, those 4 borings showed you something that said, crap, we can't, you'd have to come back, and the only methodology that would change is you'd do an open trench and lay this in. At that point, you'd have to expand that 20-foot margin
oh, I'm afraid so.
considerably,
Right.
right? This whole project, that's the only variable that I could see, and that's only just because we don't have the borings. You don't know if the Titanic's under there or suitable soils, you know, so.
It's not much of a question for us. We've done
Yes.
1 boring at the pump station, 12 around the plant. And over the years, personally, we've done probably 50 around the pond. But
And I,
for everyone's sake and your budget, we need to make sure
yes,
so that we don't get out there with thousands of dollars of equipment sitting on the pond shore and not be able to get the job done, so,
and I just want that to be clear.
yeah.
You know, this was the path of, truly the path of least resistance. In your description about the equipment coming in here, for people who work in the trade, to give Mario maybe a level of comfort, individuals that are schooled in projects of this size are made aware of the seriousness of what we're discussing tonight, and it's not really poo-pooed. If there is tortoises that come out, the box turtles come out and such, people do respond in kind with it. That's been my experiences with this type of project in the past. So I have a pretty strong comfort level with that, because this is right up front and has been researched, and there is a protocol. You start saying protocol, that means that somebody with a hard hat that's white tells somebody with a hard hat that's not, and has a bunch of stickers, you know, this is how it's gonna be. You know, there's a protocol that goes downhill. I was a little flummoxed when I came in from Gifford Street trying to find stakes and stuff. But we crossed that bridge. We're gonna have an on-site. And I think that will give a tremendous level of comfort for everyone here. There's no way in God's green earth this commissioner would ever want to delay anything with this public benefit. I think that the on-site is just to give us a little bit clearer image of what you've had in your packet, which was wonderful reading. If viewers at home could see, this is what we do in our spare time, right? There's multiple diagrams and scales, and it's colored and it's printed out very well. And your taxpayers should be satisfied with that, because it is very informative for this board, and that was very important. If there was a lot of loose ends to this, it makes a project unclear. This was clear, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
It makes it that much easier. With all this pontificating behind me now, I would entertain a motion, if there's enough information from the board, for the board, I would entertain a motion.
To continue?
I think that we can, I think that we could.
How do we do that?
I think we could close this, because the purpose of the site visit is to just review. I think that, that's how I'm looking at it. It's not to influence anything that we're looking at, it's just to make it clearer for those smaller, as you had said, the smaller part of this project that we really have an impact with.
The problem I see with that, Mr. Chairman, and I don't want to delay, is that if you close the hearing, you can't take any new information to your record, and that's the only catch I would see, and I would hate to see you get caught on a little issue like that. I would, as your staff, would recommend, I would hate to do that, but if you guys want the site visit, then we have to keep it.
Okay.
But, I mean, when 20th was fine, I'm gonna open and close it.
So I'll make a motion to continue to the 20th.
Second.
Okay,
I won't even tell you how many hearings you have.
that's all right. Any other discussion on the board?
The,
I'll put you first.
it seems like the weak link here might be the boring. Are we holding you up?
No, sir.
Okay, fine, then we can
We have a boring
continue. No
contractor
sweat.
lined up. We haven't scheduled him.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
were
no,
gonna,
because we can do something to get that moving. If
Yeah,
it's,
we
if the
can-
2
we're
weeks
gonna
are
put him on
gonna do
notice
something.
that we need a date, and if we can clear by the 20th, it's gonna take some time to get him out there anyway, so I think that'll work
That's
out
fine,
fine.
that's great. Okay, done deal.
Yes.
Jen, so Monday's a posted meeting, am I correct?
Yep, I'm gonna post
So
it
could we
tomorrow.
vote on Monday instead of the 20th? It's gonna be posted, right?
The public meeting's gonna be posted, the hearing will be continued, there's a difference.
It's okay.
Okay.
We're not holding
I
up,
just don't wanna mess,
We're
We're not being an anchor.
it-
yeah.
so that's fine.
Patrick, if you need to get the board, just let me know, if you need to do
Yeah.
that, we can work that out.
Okay, appreciate it.
If you need to go sooner,
The-
than if the 20th creates an issue, just let me know.
Thank you.
Well, for the record, this commission at times has a reputation we don't always deserve of holding things up. And if you hear willingness from us to cooperate, that's what you're hearing. If, as I said earlier, if it was staked, I think this would have been closed. And I think that's regrettable, but that's the way it is.
If there's any other discussion from the board,
Nicely put, Mike.
I'd entertain a motion for a continuance.
Make a motion to continue until August 20th, I think it's already on
We
the
have a
table.
motion and a
We
second.
did?
We did.
See that? I'd like to repeat myself, that way I can say, now, is there any other discussion from the audience on this project? Seeing none, I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, did you not take any public comment?
No, in general, in the future.
The way the
Through the planning commission or?
This particular, board is looking at wetland issues. I don't believe, Pat, if you have to this plan and zoning, or the board of selectmen, I think that's already been done, correct?
Correct.
Yes, so, this board is looking strictly at wetland issues. If you have any comments concerning wetland issues, you can put those comments in writing and send them to my office. If you have any general, other comments, I suggest you talk to those two gentlemen right outside that hallway. Okay.
You're more than welcome to join us on Monday.
On Monday, what's that?
Monday?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Posted public meeting at the site.
Thank you very much.
Hope to see you then.
I will do. Thank you.
Okay. Next is Janet and Samuel Bain, 146 Saconaset Road, West Falmouth, Mass., for permission to manage invasive plants, restore the coastal bank, install landscape steps, install an herb garden, plantings, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant along with Teresa Sprague from Blue Flax Design. We prepared the topographic plan of existing conditions and show the wetland resources and the general areas that work our activities are proposed. The specifics of the plan are on the project are on the plan by Blue Flax Design. And since it's basically all about restoration, planting, I don't really have much else to say. I'm going to hand it over to Teresa, because it's her area of expertise.
Thank you.
Just want to be able to see everybody. Good evening. For the record, Teresa Sprague from Blue Flax Design. We're here tonight with a plan proposed for some landscape work and some invasive species management and coastal bank restoration. The property at 146 Saconaset Road sits just to the north of Little Sippowisset Marsh and to the east of Buzzards Bay. A single-family dwelling with an attached two-car garage is located within the center of the property. A deck exists extends off the south side of the house with a concrete patio underneath the deck. There are stone retaining walls built on both the eastern and western side of the dwelling. AC units, there is a small drainage rut that runs west of the stone retaining wall and into the vegetation to the south. There's a shed located in the southeast, to the southeast of the dwelling, just to the north of the edge of clearing, down here. And mowed lawn and ornamental vegetation surrounds the dwelling to the east, north, and west. Directly to the south of the dwelling is a fairly steep coastal bank vegetated with a mix of native and non-native invasive species. The associated 50-foot and 100-foot buffer zones stretch northward through the dwelling, signifying that the entire house is located within the 100-foot buffer zone. The southernmost portion of the property and just off property, approximately 6,990 square feet, is located, is identified as natural heritage and endangered species, priority estimated habitat. I do not believe as of now we have received any information from NHESP regarding this. Have you gotten anything, Jen? Neither have we. Okay, so we have not heard from NHESP regarding their position on this yet. A BVW is located within the abutting property to the south, which is owned by the town of Falmouth, which plays a part in this proposed plan. The bottom third of the 146 Saconesset Road property, this area shown in green, is heavily invaded with invasive species and is considered the invasive species management area. There are some tupelo trees located along the edge of the salt marsh on the town of Falmouth property that are currently smothered, completely smothered in bittersweet and some grapevine that we would like to propose to manage as well. We can discuss that in just a moment. So as far as vegetation, a mix of native and invasive vegetation is growing in the area. The green area shown for invasive species management is approximately 5,775 square feet within the coastal bank and the 50-foot buffer to the BVW. Native vegetation in the area includes summersweet, highbush blueberry, arrowwood viburnum, black tupelo, American holly, some raspberry species, the moss and ferns, which are more dominant towards the southern end of the property and just as you get over the property line onto town of Falmouth property. As you move further away from the dwelling, closer to the top of the coastal bank is where the invasive species are located densely. They include vine honeysuckle, Asiatic bittersweet, autumn olive, shrub honeysuckle, English ivy, and porcelain berry. So basically, flipping to the goals of the project, before I get in depth into the actual project itself, on page 4 of the land management plan, the goals of the project are to manage invasive plant species within the coastal bank and buffer zones, to restore native plant species within the coastal bank and buffer zone areas, to protect and improve the stability, function, and wildlife habitat value of the coastal bank and buffer zones. The landscape project includes improving aesthetics throughout the property, as well as improving access and circulation throughout the property, a portion of which is a proposal to locate a 4-foot wide path along the eastern property line that would connect with existing paths on the neighboring property to the east. The goals and objectives would be accomplished through selective management of invasive species, including those that I previously listed, replanting of native vegetation, including trees, shrubs, and ground cover, protecting and improving ecological integrity and wildlife habitat value of the bank and buffer zones, creating dense vertical layers of vegetation, including shrubs and ground cover species, that will be established in the invasive species management area. The proposed project will not destroy or permanently alter any portion of the coastal bank or buffer zone and will not have any adverse effect on the bank's ability to prevent storm damage and flooding. No coastal engineering structures are proposed on the bank. So in light of these goals, the proposed invasive species management project and restoration replanting measures will have no adverse impact on the coastal bank or buffer zone and will actually enhance and protect the functions of the coastal bank and buffer zone and stated interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and Falmouth Wetlands Regulations. So the total area of the entire project within conservation jurisdiction, as most of the entire property is located within conservation jurisdiction, is 19,308 square feet. The area on the bank and within the 50-foot buffer zone that we're proposing for invasive species removal, which is shown in green, is 5,775 square feet. The proposed management area on town property, and what we're basically proposing to do is simply cut and treat invasive vines that are currently growing in the tubelos that are located on town property at the edge of the salt marsh. And you can see from these photos here that there's a significant amount of cover, of vine cover, and as a matter of fact, if any of you have been out to visit the site, they're completely covered. You cannot even tell that there's trees underneath there. So that area, which is shown in this tan color here on this plan, at the edge of salt marsh in the BVW, is about 4,000 square feet. And again, that would consist of selective treatment, cutting, selectively treating the vines, allowing them to decompose, and then coming back and working with staff to assess the vines that are in the trees and the best way to remove those vines, as well as the health of the trees underneath them. The other part of this proposed project within the A zone is there's currently an existing 290 square foot concrete patio located under the existing deck, We are proposing to remove that 290 square foot concrete patio and install a 450 square foot bluestone patio for an increase in patio size of 160 square feet. The patio will not come out any further than the existing deck. So it will not come out any further towards the resource area than the currently existing deck. In addition, we're also proposing in-ground stone steps along the eastern side of the property, just to the east of the dwelling on the slope, to help improve access and circulation. 18 square feet of the stone steps are proposed within the A zone, and 42 square feet are proposed within the B zone. Therefore, we're proposing 618 square feet of mitigation for the increased structure in the A and B, and 618 square feet for increase in structure within the A zone, that's a 3-to-1, and 84 square feet for mitigation provided in the B zone for increased structure. And the mitigation area that we're proposing is actually all entirely located within the A zone, because we'd like to have it abutting the buffer zone and coastal bank. That includes 3 eastern red cedar trees and 22 shrubs along the top of the coastal bank and within the 50-foot buffer. On page 9 of the land management plan, we discuss the invasive species removal method. I know you've all seen this before, so I'll just sort of rush through it. The project will begin with selective basal bark injection herbicide pretreatment of invasive species. Will allow that pretreatment to translocate anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks, giving time for the herbicide to actually get to the root systems before we start removing invasive species. Vines reaching up into healthy trees, and there are several healthy oak trees on the site that are not proposed to be touched in any way other than to remove vines from the trees. After they've been cut and allowed to decay, the vines will be carefully removed from the trees in order to prevent any damage to the trees. All debris will be removed from the site and disposed of at an appropriate composting facility. We do expect that some root material that hasn't been destroyed by herbicide pretreatments will be left behind, and we also know that there's a substantial seed bank on the site. Therefore, we're proposing follow-up treatments beginning in fall of 2014 and continuing through winter, late summer, and fall for the next 3 growing seasons, which is outlined at the end of this document in the 3-year management timeline. After initial intensive invasive species management is complete, all bare soils will be seeded with a mix of native warm and cool season grasses, and the coastal bank will immediately be covered with 100% biodegradable straw coconut erosion control blankets to protect from erosion. Less steep areas, particularly up here at the top of the bank, will be covered with a chopped straw mulch. Replanting of woody vegetation is proposed to begin in spring of 2015. Will include 150 shrubs, summersweet, bayberry, arrowwood viburnum, highbush blueberry, shrubby cinquefoil, sweet fern, and fragrant sumac. Other landscape features that we're proposing here that are within conservation jurisdiction include foundation plantings, some of which are native, some of which are not, replanting of ornamental gardens along the eastern property line, along the western property line, and at the roadway and driveway layout. We are also proposing to site a small vegetable garden within the buffer zone here on the southern part of the property. The reason for that is it's the best location on the property for a small vegetable garden that would be sited for future use, that would not be installed this year. So I think that covers everything, so I'm happy to answer any questions about the vegetation management or landscape plan.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, first we see kind of jumped the gun, we're going to take another agenda item on the town-owned property in order for you.
Oh, sorry.
So when the board, when you close this if you don't feel you need a continuance, and then you also need to take a vote to allow the work on the town-owned property that's under your care and control, and then you also know you need to
Go to the Board of Selectmen, yes.
Just because you're working on town property.
Yep.
Can you, I don't have any issues, we talked about the patio, so it's not going to extend out.
No, not beyond the deck.
That,
Yep, we pulled it back after our discussion.
Can you just tell me about the area closer to the road along the property edge?
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think,
here?
nope, other side, yep, that area.
Okay.
Down further
Down
to where your steps are.
Okay, yeah,
What species are you using next?
So there's currently, the species that are currently existing in that area are, there's lilac, there's some rhododendron, some azaleas. We are going to be proposing to remove the rhododendron to the other side of the property to provide some screening. It's too sunny there, it's not doing well, it's not thriving. Species in that area are going to include a mix of some dwarf spruce trees. Just remind myself, sorry.
It's okay, and the reason I ask is because that area was naturally vegetated and was cleared, not before you guys.
Oh, okay.
I mean, not by
Right, not by,
you,
right,
but by,
a previous owner?
yes, it was
Okay.
cleared. So that's why it was naturally vegetated, that's why I'm just asking what species.
Okay,
Anything, if you could use species that enhance wildlife habitat, it would be.
Yes. So we are proposing to use some spruce in there. We're also proposing to use oak leaf hydrangea.
Okay.
And we are proposing some other ornamental species, including some grasses and knockout roses.
Anything with a berry producing, if you could add.
Okay,
it would be
sure.
great.
Yep, absolutely.
Like I said, it was a naturally vegetated area that was clear.
Okay. It seems like the rhododendron and azaleas have been there for a while. I don't know. And I know right next door on the Martinez's property, that has all been landscaped now, and yeah, includes some cypress and other.
I don't want you to change it to anything, but just if you
Okay,
can enhance.
sure,
wildlife-
enhance wildlife value.
That would be great. Other
Yep.
than that, you and I went over the project prior to your submittal.
Okay.
And again, we'll close and then we'll take a vote to,
Okay.
and send a letter up to the town manager's office.
Okay. I guess the other question was, I don't believe we've received a DEP number.
No,
So we
not.
have,
So we're gonna have, you're right, we're
Yeah,
gonna have
to
to,
continue.
after the continuance for that and natural heritage.
okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's, I understand
Moving
entirely.
things along.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, open it up to the board. Mario?
Overall, Blue Fox does as good a job as anybody with these revegetation plants, so I want to compliment you on that.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions.
Yep.
The work that you're going to be doing in the BVW, which is, is town-owned,
Yes,
is it strictly confined to taking down the bittersweet vines off the tupelos?
absolutely.
Anything else?
Nothing else. As a matter of fact, it's really interesting because as you move into this area of the property, the native vegetation in here is quite healthy. It consists mainly of clethra, and there are some oak trees, and then the tupelo trees as you move towards the bottom of the bank. There's some fern species. It's actually, you can tell, and this is what's pretty typical when you see invasive species taking over areas that are disturbed regularly tend to have the highest density of invasive plant species. As you get further down the bank, there's less disturbance. It looks to me like over the period before the Baines owned the property, people had regularly dumped vegetation debris, and there was a lot of disturbance in that area, and you see the invasive species there. So the only thing that we're proposing to do is simply cut and treat the bittersweet vines that are growing up into the tupelo trees, allow them to decompose. I think then it would be appropriate for us to meet with staff and just review, as far as pulling the vines out of the trees, cutting the vines out of the trees, or whatever has to be done to protect the health of the trees. At this point, I can't say exactly what the health of the trees are because they're completely smothered.
Mario, if it was anything other than just cutting and treating, it would have to be filed. So.
And you have to go to the Board of Selectmen to do that work.
To do the work on town property, yes,
It's
Jen and I
town
discussed.
property, but the property's under your care and control, so.
Mary?
I believe I read in your narrative somewhere that you were planning to take some smaller natural local, I can't find the word. Native, yes.
Yes.
Native plants on the bank and move them up to the top of the bank? Is
No,
that-
we'll be replanting on the coastal bank. So we're proposing 3-gallon size shrubs on the coastal bank, but the only thing that we're proposing to move is, there's some existing rhododendron over here on the eastern property boundary that we'd like to relocate to the western property boundary where it's shadier. That will provide some screening, and the plant will actually do better on that side of the property.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're proposing to protect any native species that are currently existing on the bank, so our herbicide treatments are completely selective. We're only treating invasive plant species on the bank.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, good. That's all, thank you.
No questions.
Mike?
I'm truly impressed with the density of some of those invasives, you know. As a civil engineer, they seem to be taking over on you. Other than that observation, I have no comments.
Okay, thank you.
John?
Hi, Teresa. The foundation plantings you're talking about, is that the area that Jen was asking about where the steps are?
So the foundation plantings are mainly located
Okay.
around the foundation of the
Okay.
house, where there's plantings currently existing, but they're overgrown, they're not as healthy. So the area that Jennifer is talking about is the.
Is the along this side. Okay.
Yeah, right along there.
Right. I just didn't understand that, so thank you for clearing that.
Okay.
The mitigation zone, is that actually lawn right now?
It
So you're
is.
going to be
Yes.
taking that area and
Yes.
planting it with natives,
With native plants, yep.
native plants. In contacting the Heritage Association,
Yeah.
they will notify you, if they have records of this area, would they know rare species, or is that something that?
They will. They'll
Okay.
notify us. I currently don't know what rare species are existing on this area, but say, for instance, like with the plan that was just before you, let's say that eastern box turtle are, located on this site, we would then be required to come up with a turtle protocol similar to what was just proposed earlier, which we have done before. If it's, otherwise, we'd get that no-take letter that they had discussed
Right.
earlier, which
Okay.
I'm expecting.
They'll issue a letter, John, letting us know whether they think there's going to be an adverse impact.
Mhm.
Okay.
And once we receive that letter, then
Right.
Flags will need to address whatever comments they have.
Is
Yes.
that, so that's something we have to wait for?
We
until-
do
Okay.
actually have to wait
All
for
right.
it. The timing's off between DEP and Natural Heritage. You'll kind of get a feel for that. We have to put everyone in the hearing within 21 days of their submittal to us. Natural Heritage has 30 days to comment.
Okay.
So they submit to us, they submit to Natural Heritage, kind of like on the same timeline, but they're kind of a week later than we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit of a learning curve. here.
Oh, I completely understand.
There's all
and-
sorts of little quirks.
Thank you.
Yep,
Last thing, with the selective foliar spot application,
yep.
is that spraying in certain areas?
It's
Like-
literally using, so our pretreatment is a selective basil bark application, so literally we're going in and we're either cutting and dripping directly onto the vines, or we're wiping the herbicide onto the basil bark
Okay.
of the vines itself. So, it's a little bit labor intensive. We're literally crawling through the brush and locating those things.
Right.
Follow-up treatment, if, we don't do broad foliar spraying, so if we're doing follow-up treatment and we're using a sprayer, it's with a low-volume nozzle, and we're literally just touching the plants.
Okay,
Yeah. So-
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, you're right, it's very dense there. And for anybody that, I don't know if anybody else noticed, but one of the stakes, the vines,
Has already curled
It's
around
already
the
rolled
stake.
around.
I just was there right before the hearing and saw that, yeah.
that's awesome. That's just a happy crap galore.
Yeah,
I try to read your management and see if I can trip you up.
okay.
And I haven't been able to do that. I appreciate how you address the irrigation in here.
Yes,
And then at the very end, as necessary until system is removed. Huzzah. And that should be good for the homeowner to hear too, because then it's a self-sustaining system. It ends up being something that's, Mother Nature's gonna let you endure.
exactly.
And then the ongoing invasive species maintenance,
Yes,
that's forever. That's something that, becoming good stewards, once you've accomplished this, your investment in this bank and promoting a healthy, I don't think people realize dumping leaves and things like that. I did it. I was naive to that it was a detriment to that.
yep,
And the learning curve that I had on this board and climbing underneath enough happy crap to scratch my back all the heck, that what this does is just it eliminates everything that could grow and has good root systems. the invasives really do umbrella everything and make a
Right.
chocolate mess.
Right,
So you're gonna have a healthy system in 3 years' time. And
Yeah.
it should be a pretty much a low-maintenance thing as long as you stay on it.
right,
As long as it doesn't get neglected.
yep.
Thank you for not getting tripped up on that. And my last comment before I entertain a motion to continue, because we don't have a DEP and we need a letter, is a cool pickup truck was in that driveway.
Yeah,
That
What
was-
year?
That was,
I don't know, my husband has 3 pickups, so I think he has a 72 and a 71. And I don't know what's in the yard, I can't keep track of it.
well, it was definitely a cool truck.
yeah.
I'll tell him, thank you.
And while we're at it, your spigot for the outside on the east corner leaks. You need a plumber, other than that.
Oh, the spigot?
Yeah,
Oh, the
drip, drip,
spigot.
drip, drip.
It's, your spigot's dripping.
So seeing as how we don't have a DEP or a letter from Heritage, we need to have continuance.
Make a motion to continue the hearing till,
Here's the deal.
The 20th is jammed.
On the 20th, you have literally 16
be a lot
notices
tonight.
you have not heard, and now you have 3 continued. I have 2 DEP numbers that have this DEP number and 178 that I absolutely cannot. We could put it on the 20th, but then I gotta shut it down. You're looking at 9, 10 notices. I mean, granted, it's an open close, so
Yeah.
you can do that.
Let's do it.
Along with the town of Falmouth should be an open and close.
Yeah.
So that other than that, you guys are pretty busy and there's only so much that you can process in one night. So I would say you could put this on the 20th and then after that, we cannot continue anymore.
And
I
just,
don't
just to
care
be
how
clear,
badly you feel.
just to be clear, you said 6 new notices?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Two of them you haven't opened yet. So you have 4, technically you have 4 new ones and 4 continues, but 2 of those continues you haven't even opened yet. So, oh yeah, you guys are gonna have fun this week.
I think this one will be easy
Yes.
enough, though.
I don't know.
And this should be open and closed.
Let's continue it to the
And
20th.
don't even ask.
Is that your
When
motion?
it comes to your
Yeah,
turn,
sure.
you don't
I'm
know.
Second.
moved to,
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion from the board? Is there any discussion on this project in the audience? Okay, this is gonna get voted for a continuance to August 20th, the last continuance to the 20th for the evening. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Now, before you leave the podium,
Okay.
just so that we get this all out of the way, I need a motion to allow Blue Flags to do the proposed work as described to the town trees,
Yep, on the town property.
town property.
And we'll send a letter to the board of selectmen.
That would be a motion to that.
I'm done, second.
beautiful. Well, he can't, Jim
I
can't make the
second.
motion.
Okay,
So
we have-
Mike made it,
I made the,
he made the motion.
I made it,
John,
and John seconded it,
I heard myself do it.
okay? So, any other discussion on the board? Any discussion about what was just discussed by us? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved.
Did you have a date with the board of selectmen yet?
I don't have a date with the board of selectmen.
I would contact them sooner
Okay.
rather than later.
Okay, I'll call them tomorrow.
Okay, moving forward, we have, the next is 178 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to install composite sheet piling behind the existing stone riprap wall. Install bedding stone 12 to 18 inch tap rock in the area of the flat stairs. Construct new stairs and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Do you have any comments at this time, Jen?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'll save any of my comments until after Mr. Porcelli's presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Michael Borselli. I represent the applicant. We filed a notice of intent requesting permission to do some coastal bank stabilization or existing seawall reinforcement project at 178 Edgewater Drive East. The property currently is occupied by a single-family dwelling shown in the middle of the property, a driveway system, a lawn area, and just to the east is a stone seawall that pretty much borders the entire waterfront of the property. There's an existing dock with a permit, and there are some scattered trees on the northern side, a couple of trees on the southeast side. The wetland resources adjacent to the property include a salt marsh to the south and east of the property, shown in green here, land under the ocean, land in a salt pond, land containing shellfish, land subject to tidal action, all on the waterfront. And other appurtenances that are typical for a residential dwelling are on the property. The reason we're here is the existing seawall is showing signs of settlement, collapse, piping of soil through voids, and the potential exists for it to continue to deteriorate and possibly slump more into the wetland resources. The access stairs, if you've been to the site, the access stairs to the dock are now unusable due to settlement and collapse. There are voids you would have seen at the top of the wall, and there's some hollowing out behind the stone wall. And these are all symptoms of that effect of what's called piping, when this tidal action works into the wall and the water draws soil out. This type of wall, which was built a long time ago, is not the way the walls, if there are riprap walls proposed today, this isn't the way it's built. This was stone and mortar versus dry laid stone on a filter cloth or a filter fabric, so that the stone is going to settle, it's going to shift, it's going to heave from frost. So the concrete that was used really to prevent soil from washing through the voids ends up cracking away from the stone, and voids will open up, and that's what's happened here. So over a long period of time, these walls notoriously fail this way. So there were two solutions. The first was to, which is much more invasive and had the potential for impact to wetland resources, was to go in and remove the entire wall and then rebuild it in kind with stone, rebuilt the way that they're typically built today. It's very expensive, much more potential impact to the wetlands, or to do what seems to be a trend, and I've proposed some of these to you in the past, is to try to leave the stone in place, but to stop the bleeding, if you will, which is what's happening, the piping of the soil from behind the wall, and build a sort of a second line of defense in the event that there's any collapse of this wall in the future. And that second line of defense is a sheet piling wall, a composite sheet piling material that would be installed directly behind the stone wall. It's installed using a vibratory hammer mounted on a small excavator. And that sheet piling, which is, you've probably seen more industrial type steel sheet piling used for cofferdams and along commercial harbors and things. It's more of a lightweight residential use in this case, but it's still the same technology. It's interlocking sheets that create a sort of a, if you look down at it, a waffling geometry that has inherent resistance to bending, and that combined with tiebacks that are installed on an interval, hold the wall back into the earth. Now, in this case, the stone wall is still there, which you would think would hold up the sheet piling behind, but we have to design this, assuming we might have a failure, and this sheet piling wall would have to stand alone. Failure of the stone wall, I should say. So we can't assume we're going to get any real design strength out of the stone wall, but we will really get some protection. That'll still be there, and there'll be no vertical face because of the stone that exists in front of it. But what the new wall will do is prevent the soil from leaking out of the stone wall. It'll prevent further collapse or slumping and the potential for rocks to begin to dislodge and have a bigger problem. Along with doing that, we hope to fill in the void created where the existing steps that led to the dock are by putting in smaller stone called trap rock, which is a 6 to 12-inch stone that would just be placed, dry laid in that void just to smooth out that one area where the stairs are. So it's more in line and has a continuous face. And then build new timber stairs over the entire wall and bridge over it, and then have those land on top of the existing dock so that the applicant can then safely access the dock. Access to the site was limited. In fact, it's virtually impossible to get to the site without going on to the northern abutter's property. Now, the northern abutter has, we've reached out to the northern abutter through our client, and they're willing to allow the machine to gain access through their driveway, through their grass area, as shown here, instead of having to try to make access through our property, which would probably require limbing at least limbing of some trees and maybe moving of the trees, or through here, which would require removal of a shed and some temporary disruption. So it's a pretty clear and open, no need to remove any vegetation if we just skirt the lot line to the north. Now, we've prepared a letter, and I don't have it yet. It hasn't been signed by the neighbor yet. My client is trying to reach out and get the letter signed, so we know you can't close the hearing for that reason, and we also don't have a DEP file number. But we expect by the time that we get to the continued hearing date that we'll have both. I think that sums up the proposed project, and I'm here to take questions.
Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mike, when you say permit for the dock, does it have a wetland permit, just a license? I didn't see a copy of any, did I miss it in here? I just saw the license.
Well, I have something, it's not a license, it's called an interim permit that would have been issued in the early 90s at a time when they were granting those, and they're not recorded. Only licenses are recorded. Those aren't recorded, I don't believe.
This interim approval shall be void unless the same is recorded within 60 days.
Oh, well, I'll have to check on that. I don't know that I have a recorded copy. I didn't think they recorded the interim permits.
For your client's sake, that should, yeah, I would double check on that. That
Okay.
should be recorded. So, check on that for me. And if it doesn't have a RDA or anything like that, look into getting some sort of permit through us for it. The only other question I have is you definitely need the letter from the abutter. Talk to me about the trap rock. What size are you looking at? Only because I just looked at a wall the other day where all the trap rock they used in between the stones just somehow migrated to the beach. And I don't want that to happen in this case in the marsh. So, are you talking about the stone that they put in between when they built the abutments?
Yeah, it's...
Because that would be my only concern with the use of that material, Mike, is you gotta make sure it doesn't move. to get rid of that salt marsh right there.
Right,
You see what I'm saying?
yeah, I proposed 12 to 18-inch diameter stone, which is smaller than the riprap, but it's bigger than, stone chips, which would have a tendency to dislodge. So it's really smaller,
Okay.
manageable stone that could be fit in that void.
As long as that is, it's stabilized and I don't have that shifting, because the stone chips is what I saw and they're all on the beach now.
Right,
so
no.
I definitely don't want that to happen in the salt marsh.
Oh, these are bigger stone.
Okay. Then that's it.
Mario?
First of all, I want to thank the applicant for liberally posting the site, beware of dog, all over the place. That was a nice touch. When the dog started barking, and I couldn't determine from what direction the barking was coming from, I found myself, one eye looking at the coastal bank, the other eye behind my shoulder watching for Cujo's approach. Aside from that, the revetment, there are some places where it's slumped a little bit. There's a little bit of separation here and there. I don't think that a whole new hard engineering structure is even necessary here. The staircase, I think, does need to be built. The stone steps are in disrepair. But it seems to me that with mortar and chink stone, repairs can be made to the revetment in situ without going to a whole new engineering structure, which is fairly involved. You're talking about tiebacks and things, so it's going to be a pretty involved project. I just don't think it's necessary. I didn't see any threat to the existing house from coastal erosion. I didn't see any sign that the bank is currently eroding in any way. I did see some openings in the revetment, but I think they can be repaired without going through the whole idea of a new coastal engineering structure. I think the staircase is necessary, but not a whole new bulkhead.
Thank you. Mary?
No comments, no questions, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate to respond to each commissioner or wait till the end?
If you'd like to do so.
To
right
keep
now.
my continuity on the points as they're made, if I could, for Commissioner De Gregorio, in my opinion, spot fixing this wall is not reasonable. You can't gain access. The only way you could try to spot fix this wall would be to try to inject concrete into voids and wait for it to pump to a point where you start to see it seep out of the other voids, and that is truly a Band-Aid fix. In order to really try to fix this wall, we don't want to try to add insult to injury and add more concrete. We're trying to take a proactive approach and use the wall that's there as the limit of work, if you will. So what we're doing is behind it. There's no excavation. It's really a surgical method. In fact, you've seen it most recently on another application on Ferry Road in a much more kind of complicated access situation. This really is one of the applications for this material. So we don't want to have to find out 5 or 10 years down the road that we have a bigger problem. We're trying to be proactive before it becomes a bigger problem.
Okay. Thank you. Russ?
No questions.
Mike?
Well, there you go. I see this as being proactive is a good word. My concern is you're going to end up with a pile of rocks with no soil under them at the front of that wall at some point down. The piping, if you want to call it that, is continuing. But what's the alternative? If there is any concern I have, it's you slope just uphill of that sheeting is 1 on 5. You're going to have a challenge with the right with the equipment, keeping it in the place, be sure everything goes there, and when you're doing that during construction, not having the resource damaged. So that's my concern is you're gonna have all this equipment moving around and how you protect against it. That's why we have a commission we're lucky to have a commission to see things from both sides.
If I could, I respect the comments. It's going to be, the equipment on site is going to be like a small to medium-sized excavator. Most of those are, those have tracks, so the display, the PSI weight is, spread out. That's really other than hand equipment, some carpentry tools and things for cutting and putting the cap on, is going to be limited to that piece of equipment. And then that same piece of equipment also has an adapter that installs those helical anchors.
Backwards, so you
there's
can
no
do that
ex-
from what is now a lawn.
Right, so
Yeah.
there's no excavation, it's really like the least invasive way. Now, the lawn that's there is gonna get chewed up, no question, they have to restore that and re-loam and seed that. In accordance
And
with
it's
your
it's
standards.
during construction where you're gonna have the potential for erosion, where you're
Right.
coming onto that
And it-
detail at the top.
Right, and if you look at the detail, the top of the sheathing is designed to be above the lawn grade by about a foot. So it almost acts like a silt barrier or a limit of work and it's done in manageable sections. So the risk of exposure to erosion is limited because the wall, as it's installed,
Being
acts as
designed.
like a barrier.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure it was clear.
You may see me on a rainy day, I'm warning you. There.
John?
This is an interesting project. I think that it's kind of a difficult circumstance with the wall and the conditions that you're up against there. Can you just explain a little bit more about how you actually get that vinyl sheeting down into the ground?
Sure.
You're just forcing it into the ground, basically?
Yeah, if you look at the typical section on the bottom left, the sheathing is composite material made of fiberglass vinyl kind of composite. It's very tough, hard plastic, and it has a thickness of about a 1/4 inch
Okay.
or so. And
So it just fits in there?
it's a relatively sharp edge, if you will, to penetrate into soil. And each sheet has a specified length. In the piece of equipment that I'm talking about, the track-mounted piece of an excavator, a backhoe, if you will, has mounted on it a vibratory hammer that grabs the top of each sheet. And the vibratory hammer also has some weight to it. Between the hydraulics of the machine pressing down, the weight of the adapter in the fact that it vibrates, it actually will vibrate and push that down to the specified depth. So
Okay.
there's no digging to put this
Right.
in other
No,
than.
it seems fairly minimal, given what needs to happen here.
Then once
If it does
that's-
need to happen.
You don't rely on just the sheet itself, even if the stone wasn't there.
Right.
It has some inherent resistance to doing this, but it needs help. So you install these helical anchors at the top, or a few feet down from the top and then those are basically drilled back into the soil, and the helical shape of the anchor resists it from pulling out. So it creates tension that
Right.
helps keep the wall vertical.
What do you, I mean, Mike brought up the fact that there's going to be sand moving underneath the rocks. What do you anticipate happening after you have this vinyl sheeting in?
Well, once that vinyl sheeting's in, any more removal of soil from behind the wall will be dammed off, if you will, from the fact that the sheeting has been installed, so it prevents it from working its way through the stones, other than what may be under the stones already
Right.
seaward of the new wall.
I mean, that's, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Jim?
Mike, do you think that wall can stand up to the vibration of putting this in?
Yeah, it's laid back like this.
And have you done borings along the wall where you, if you start putting that sheet piling in, you're not gonna hit anything? Like a toe stone or anything like that?
Well, we haven't done borings because we would have had to come for permission to do that, but we didn't do borings because of our knowledge of these types of walls, the way they're built. If you, they're laid against the slope, and if you get behind, and since it's at an angle, if you get behind the highest most point, the remaining stones that head as you work down towards the water are further away, so.
I think you should do some borings, only because I'm thinking back to another vinyl sheeting wall where we asked a very similar question, and we were assured that the toe stones didn't stick out, and then that wall needed to be bumped out during construction.
True.
So, I know this one's a little different, it's going behind the wall, but still, I want to make sure you don't bump into anything. And then call me down there when you're in the middle of construction. So that would make my comfort level a little bit higher.
That's fine.
And Sue, what is the plan for future collapse of the stone wall once you have the sheet piling in?
Well, if the wall's,
Because you're not going to be maintaining it, you're not going to put in concrete, if that wall is going to continue to deteriorate.
right, and what's likely to happen is it'll just shift and settle and fall back on itself, and the stone would just remain there. It just may not be in the same organized fashion, but it would be in the same.
If it starts to impact the river, it will need to be addressed.
Absolutely, it would have to. We don't anticipate that, but if you were concerned about that,
We can condition that.
yeah, the only other thing you could do is try to take the whole wall out, which is,
I don't think it's necessary right now, but if it becomes a problem in the future, I want to condition in the permit, allowing this wall that the applicant or property owner needs to address it, and you can't just turn a blind eye
sure,
to it.
yep.
Okay.
Mike?
I appreciate the concern, and I don't like to propose solutions, but if during preceding construction as you go, probes were done with a rod in front of the,
That's what I'm thinking.
along in front, before you drive sheeting, then you'd be sure that the sheeting in place could reasonably be driven. And you'd use the same piece of equipment and a large
Same piece of
diameter pipe and just probe in front of yourself or along that wall as
Sure.
you go.
Yep.
And if you see a problem where you come back, you can correct it before we have stones rolling into the river, I guess is what people are concerned about.
Sure, understood.
Okay?
Well, the one thing that I was noticing, there was some tie-offs on the existing stonework. Some lines going out to the water, some old galvanized eye bolts
Right,
that were in there. Those would have to go. That's just,
sure.
you don't want to have any encumbrances on that. You don't want anything pulling on that. I too look at this as a proactive. I don't have a lot of hope for that in the future. One of the things that might be entertained by the applicant is the space that's between, maybe some plantings to help defer the runoff that comes downhill. Not just, once your lawn's established, to help create a little bit of, I'm not saying trees and block of view and all that, but things that would help stabilize that behind that. It's not part of this application, but it just might help solidify things in the future. We know that this has to be continued, and it will not be on the 20th. And I would entertain a motion.
did talk to Clint about establishing a narrow buffer along the top of that wall. There's absolutely no resistance in that wall at all. And you can see that when you're looking right at the back of that wall collapse. There's nothing holding it.
Right.
To be on the
No wonder it's
27th?
getting
Okay.
stuck right under.
We gotta check with Jen.
27?
Yeah, 27th is fine.
Okay.
Just not the 20. I personally do not want to be here till 2 in the morning.
Can't be,
As much as I love
can't be
you
past,
guys.
can't be
Past
past,
midnight.
can't go past midnight.
2, 4, there's more than just you.
I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to continue to August 27th.
Second.
May I have a second? Any further discussion on the board? Is there any discussion about this project from the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. Do you have a comment?
Oh.
Okay. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Mike. Okay, getting myself caught up. And this is, yes it is. Next, we have continued requests for a hearing under a notice of intent. 52 Perch Pond Circle Trust, Realty Trust, 52 Perch Pond Circle, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to renovate the existing dwelling that includes renovating the landscape stairs, constructing a new first floor deck above the existing deck and a set of stairs, expanding the concrete stoop, reconfiguring the timber wall, installing native mitigation plantings, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Good night.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll save any of my
Thank you.
comments until after the applicant's presentation.
Good evening. For the record, Zach Krasinski, professional civil engineer, Bracken Engineering. Here this evening on behalf of the applicant, 52 Perch Pond Circle Realty Trust. As mentioned, this is a pre-existing developed single-family house lot. The lot was created in 1963, house was constructed in 1976, and the current owners purchased the house last year. What they're proposing to do is add a new deck onto the back of the house, extend a concrete stoop along the front, remove a set of railroad or landscape steps that are deteriorating, leading from the upper section of the property down to the lower section of the property, and then some external modifications to the house, windows, doors, everything. Resource areas closest to or near the lot, proposed work, Perch Pond, located to the east, a AE 12 flood zone. This flood zone is based on the new maps that just came into effect in July. A coastal bank based on the slope criteria, both DEP's and the town of Falmouth's regulations. On top of that coastal bank shown here in orange on the plan. And then last is land subject to coastal storm flowage. The new deck here is a deck that will be serviced the first floor of the house. So this deck will actually be about 10 feet off grade. There are no proposed grade changes on the lot. No minimal earth disturbance will be just related to the sonotube installation along the back. And then the removal of the stairs, we're proposing to take the stairs out and we'll just be tying the existing wall back together along that bank. Just some pictures of the existing house so you can see what's out there right now. These are the steps that we're going to be removing. The new deck would be situated along here and wrap around to the front of the house. This is the concrete stoop that we're going to be connecting to and tying in from there. Project does result in an increase in impervious area in the Zone A to the coastal bank. That increase in impervious coverage is about 250 square feet with the required mitigation and a 3-to-1 ratio of 3-to-1 ratio resulting in about 750 square feet of required mitigation. Plantings will be in accordance with the town's regulations. Species proposed right now, northern bayberry, chokeberry, or black chokeberry, beech palm arrowwood, typical for the area. Final selection and everything will be worked out with staff prior to installation. 3-gallon pot size, 3 feet in center. And this has all been situated down near Perch Pond to further enhance the buffer area down there. With that, I'll turn it back over to the board.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. John?
No questions?
Mike?
No comment?
Russ? Harry?
Thank you.
Mario?
Of course. Small project. I was out there on July 11th, and I saw no staking of proposed corners. I saw no delineation of the wetlands, nothing.
Yeah, the staking, our crew just missed you by a day, and then we went back, we had asked for a continuance, and then went back and restaked the property after.
So everything's all staked out
Yes.
and delineated? Okay, fine.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, I'd entertain a motion if we have enough information.
Ooh, I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, I just have a question for Jen.
Please.
Do we need a copy of those pictures for the record?
Yes, we do.
I can submit all those to you.
Yes, please.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
man.
No problem.
Nice catch.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want-
And we've unlike over here.
All right, I would entertain,
In fact, you're gonna need to just send them over to
Email
us.
some over to you.
That'll be great.
entertain a motion if we have enough information to close.
I move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Hey, you finally got one.
All right. At this point, any other comment from the board? Is there any comment on this project in the audience? Seeing,
Thanks for being quick, Sam.
Hey, I tried.
seeing none, or having that completed, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach, again, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, I lost my paper.
Here you go. Here you go.
Thank you. Next is Michael and Martha Terry, 67 Nashawina Street, West Falmouth, for permission to renovate the existing
Ma'am.
dwelling to include the construction of new additions, deck, patio, stairs, pergola, landscape, retaining walls, native mitigation plantings, to license the existing stone pier, wooden ramp and float, and the associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
I will save any of my questions till after Barbara's presentation, just in case you were waiting on me.
Thank
Good
you.
evening. For the record, Barbara Frappier with Warwick and Associates. We're here tonight are Mike and Martha Terry, the new property owners, and Spencer, I'm going to butcher your last name, Spencer, Altonen from Joyce Landscaping. For a couple of you, you may be familiar with this property. About a year or two ago, there was a proposal that you approved where this house was going to be torn down and appended to the house next door. Fortunately, that didn't happen. Terry's purchased the home and are going to do some renovations to it. And fortunately, it's going to remain very much like it looks today. The only visible changes from the street, there'll be a second story on top of this sun porch that'll be enclosed. The roof line will change on this little bump out over here. So it'll be a couple of smaller hip roof types. And there'll be a pergola, different entrance foyer. Those are the items that will be changing on the house. Except the resource areas we have are across the way, of course, Snug Harbor. There's Salt Marsh, there's top of Coastal Bank. And as you know, there's a 100-foot buffer to a salt marsh, which is shown here in green. And the 100-foot buffer to the top of Coastal Bank is shown here in blue. The most of the work that's going to be done in your jurisdiction consists of the front entrance with the pergola and some re-landscaping. If you were out to the site, you can see that there is a stone wall here on either side flanking the driveway. There are large granite steps coming down into the driveway, which is a shell driveway. What's going to happen is this wall here to the left will remain in place. The wall to the right of the driveway will be shortened, and these granite steps and stones going up to the front door right now will be removed. And instead will be a retaining wall. They're going to pull back that sloped lawn and retain it with a wall. You did get a package, a revised package, showing some revised landscaping.
It was revised June 29th, right, Barbara?
Yes, that was the
Well,
28th or
no,
29th.
Yours is revised the 29th.
Right. What we did was, because I did have some hardscape in the 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh.
No, I'm sorry, Barbara. Yours was revised the 15th of July, the last revision one. Sorry about that.
It's right to the right.
7:15?
You don't have the one, the newest one that Jen has, I'm going to tell you. And I'll tell you what the difference is between what you have and what Jen just got the other day. There was structure in the A buffer, but there was also structure within the, what is known as the town road layout. It's the accepted town road layout, which on this property comes all the way up here, goes right through the hill on the front yard. The county road layout is way down here where you expect it to be, closer to the pavement.
This is the one you're supposed to be looking at.
So we moved everything
What's in your
so that
pen?
there's no work, no structural work outside the 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh. And what was left was a little bit of structure from steps along the left retaining wall. We met with Jennifer on Monday with Scott from engineering and went over everything to see if he was comfortable with the project. And the only thing he asked us to do was remove, one of your plans has steps coming out of the driveway to the left. We removed those steps, which were in the A buffer, which accounted for about 150 square feet of mitigation planning. We also asked Scott to review the plants that we're proposing to put on within the road layout, and he was good with those. So we made the changes that Scott and Jennifer discussed on Monday, and basically that's all it was, as opposed to the plan that you have. So what we ended up with is only needing, we have a net reduction in structure in the A buffer to a salt marsh of a -6 feet now, since this meeting on Monday, and a total of 122 square feet of mitigation being required. We have well more than that proposed on the Terry's property. And there is some planting going to be taking place on town property. It'll be native plants. The Terrys have already worked out of jurisdiction, removing the Boston ivy, which is threatening all the trees in the backyard. There is a section of privet between this house and the house next door, which is going to be removed. So the landscaping will all be natives with habitat value and appropriate ornamentals in the right spots. The only other change is that there'll be a couple of cobble aprons, which Scott liked at the Shell, at the Shell driveway, just to keep it intact. So I believe that we have addressed all of the issues. The only other part of the filing, is that we want to license the stone steps and pier across the street.
Nobody.
This is the most.
Sorry, Barb.
I'm going to pass these down.
Thank you.
There is a stone pier with steps, a wooden ramp and float. All we're proposing tonight is to apply for a Chapter 91 license. It's never been licensed. Those are pictures from my book, which Mr. Terry actually brought tonight, a historical book on the town of Falmouth that shows this, I'll pass those down too, that shows this pier, ramp and float since the days of just only black and white photography. So we do predate, and they would like to get it licensed and make it legal. So if you have any questions, the appropriate plan is the one without the little stairs, Jen.
The ones that the last revision, they,
It says remove stairs. Look on the last revision on the left corner, and see the block?
Yep.
Where it names all the revisions?
yeah, I have revised landscape.
All right, the one that I dropped off and gave to Melanie on Tuesday morning after our meeting.
Oh, Matthew, okay.
That's why you may not have
All
it.
right. So I'm looking at 7:15. No, Barbara, you addressed all the concerns I had, met with the town engineering department, which was my biggest concern, because we really did need to know
Right.
I
No,
told you the town thought that was.
I know. It was a nice day to meet.
It was a nice morning, it was very nice out there, beautiful sight, I have no question. And Scott's happy, and as long as the engineering department is okay with what's going on over there, it's fine. And I personally know that Doc has been there for at least.
Gonna give away your age.
That much of my age, 21 years.
Thank you. John?
I think that the plan looks great. I don't have any questions about what the works that's being done around the house. I guess I have a question for you, Jen, about the dock, in terms of the distance underneath the dock at low tide.
It just sits there. And I think Barbara's gonna come back and address that at a future date.
Yes, I just, in answer to your question through you,
Please.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
we are going to file sometime in the future when I come up with for air to make some repairs to the stone. And I did approach Jennifer about the idea of maybe getting it so I can get a proper depth underneath that float. But that'll all be as a separate, all its own notice of intent.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike?
If I'm reading this right, we're showing some mitigation on town property?
Well, it was mitigation at the time. We're gonna continue that planting. That's why I have it here in dark green and light green. Scott liked those plants, so he approved them. But the mitigation all on the Terry's property exceeds the amount that they're required to do.
Makes me happy. I'm good.
Russ? Mary?
I just noticed something on the WA Form 3 that I don't know if it's important or not, given that all this other stuff is being submitted, but the general project description says that you're going to raise the existing house and construct a new one.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't know if you want to change that or not.
Yes, obviously.
It threw me off.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, when you do, when in times of rushing, you do a little cut and paste sometimes.
Yes, okay.
And I think I didn't cut and paste properly.
I do actually have one question.
Sure.
From your narrative, and I don't, it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't bear on the outcome at all, but you're talking about the redevelopment, and you reference August 15th, 1998, and I didn't understand the relevance.
That's in your regulations. I think you have if something was built prior to that date, don't you?
Okay, I couldn't find that date I can think of 1979, and there's another 1986, but 1998 didn't ring any bells with me. So, Jen, do you know what that is?
I believe that's the date that the 98 regs were put in.
I think that's what it was, so it had to be prior to your regs.
Oh, okay, all of the regs or the buffer regs?
No, just the regs that started to talk about
Buffer zone,
redevelopment,
okay, all right.
buffer zones and things like that.
Okay, thanks. See, I learned something.
So did I.
But no, it's not necessarily written.
2 3-foot high walls.
I have to go back and look, but
Yeah.
in this.
I don't think it actually shows up in the regs as a reference point, but.
Oh, wait, no, it doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
I won't use that phrase again.
No, I was just,
Strike it.
trying to get re-educated, so.
All right.
Mario?
No questions or comments?
Okay. At this point, I'd like to thank the applicant for going through a little bit of a process. But this, I'm sure, was a learning experience. Welcome to Falmouth. Enjoy your home. I'm glad it didn't get torn down. I think that, not that I was, other people have their taste too, and that's fine if that was there, but I'm particularly pleased to see the renovation as opposed to raising the building. And I think you've addressed everything and satisfies everybody's inquiries on this. So if we have enough information.
We can propose another one.
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the board? Is there any discussion from the audience about this project? Seeing none?
Thank
Call
you
for
very
the vote.
much.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
May I have one of these?
Jen, do you
One
need
each of those
this?
pictures?
Do you have this?
Thank you.
Make sure, Ross, can you get a copy of the photo thing?
I did get a copy of the photo-y things, and I put Scott's letter in here, and,
Yeah, I printed out Scott's email and everything.
yeah.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
I thought this was going to be a quick one.
Oh. Next.
So how are we supposed to deal with just looking at this other business?
Oh, we've already done that.
No, I know that, but for future reference, is that something that we have to like move on the agenda?
We can,
Like-
it's our discretion.
Okay.
At that point, because it correlated with another application, I just
We
took it
just-
out of order to simplify it, so one went right after the other. Other business is not dictated to be,
There is no,
Formal.
We
okay.
began with other business.
yes, we did.
We began with other business, and before Teresa caught me off guard, she kind of included that in her presentation. I had taken a, to the chair to take it out of order after that hearing, just so she could go home.
Yeah.
So she didn't have to stay. But she kind of blended both those into her presentation, which
Right.
we could just kind of went with it.
I wasn't sure if that was something that we needed to vote on or
We,
something like that. And not that I have a problem with the way that was done. I
Yeah,
just was
we,
curious because I didn't know.
It's a very dynamic thing we have. It's
It
always-
is.
So next is
Dynamic
to.
leader.
Yes, very fluid. Next is to vote orders of conditions. Are we available to do any of these this evening? Okay. First is 205 T-Ticket Highway 300 Committee.
So this is the creation of the handicap access walkway and the boardwalk at the ticket park. And walking track.
And the observation deck.
And the observation platform.
And the crossing, if it's a bridge or whatever you call it.
And the pipe.
The only thing I forgot to ask Doug this was if he was gonna have, and maybe you can tell me this, Tom, the decking he's proposing to use over the wetland part of it?
Yep.
Is that light penetrating decking?
I'll take a look in just a moment.
Okay.
I think he did, I think part of his testimony was that it was, wasn't it?
Oh, I'm gonna look at that.
I would like to know.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what he was saying.
The platform for the wheelchair was at grade.
No, the platform.
And that was-
is gonna be, the observation area is dry lake.
No, this is saying it's Morante decking.
Yeah, so what is Morante decking?
Morante is a very dense hardwood. It's,
So it's gonna be close.
well,
It's
it'll
got
have a slight,
spacing.
it'll have a slight spacing, not much.
Of your nail width.
Yeah, it's gonna be at most quarter inch or,
Okay, well,
So-
then the only thing I would say is, does the board want to see something with a light penetration?
This is for the walk over the.
Yeah, the walk over that wetland area.
which way is north-south
It's
like
fairly,
that?
how long is it? It's pretty long.
Overall 20,
25, 30 feet?
Oh.
No weight, that's a 40 inch. And twice that one.
Yeah.
that's 60 feet overall. It's,
Yeah, it's, yeah.
And what's the width?
6 feet.
Well, I would say that other places we would require
Um,
better. Or we have required it,
Yeah.
let's put it that way.
You required it over wetlands, that docks that have to go over wetlands to meet the dock, I know that. We have required that. Are we doing anything with the little pipe?
Going over.
No.
No, we didn't.
The,
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, other than that, I think the board was very supportive of the 300 committee's proposal, the creation of the pass, their phase 2 of this. And they've already started plugging the wetland with staff's approval.
You know what, we would not be able, I think that if we required, I'm not opposed to, the way the sun's coming across this thing,
How far is it off the grade though?
it is not that much, because that's also handicap compliant.
Yeah. It may be necessary for that reason.
Right.
Not to have the spacing larger.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I think that just, for the ease of construction and permitting of it, as far as,
You have to look it up at 521, Jen.
What's that?
that's
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 the
it.
A
That's
and B.
fine, I mean, there is obviously of public interest and a public benefit to
Right.
the park.
Right.
So that absolutely, it was just a question I had because I didn't know what
Yeah, it's a
that kind
dense,
of deck you want.
yeah, it's a very dense,
Okay.
it's very heavy.
It doesn't grow in Falmouth.
So that,
It's not new.
So,
no, and that's
Oh,
fine,
no.
that was just a question I had, so I don't really think there are any other special conditions that you need except proper erosion control.
yes.
We received I'm not quite sure what to call it, a sheet with calculations for that deck as part of the submittal. There was a calculation sheet or a drawing that came with it.
Oh, Doug submitted it.
Yes.
Do we need it? And if we do, does it need a stamp
For this decking?
for that deck?
No, we don't need it. We don't need to, no, we don't need to make this any, nope,
Okay.
in my eyes anyways, so,
That would be in a lot of other questions.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not,
I know what you're saying, like, if a retaining wall or anything is over 4 feet, you need it
Yeah.
engineered.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying, I don't think this is over 4 feet, I think they're purposely keeping it low, so I don't know if a levy will require it to have an engineer, I don't know. If you would like to-
It was presented as an engineered structure.
No, I
And
absolutely.
that's, I'm just,
But then you get into railings and everything else, and I think they purposely kept it low so they didn't have to do that.
Right.
But,
because that's the,
Because they don't have railings on it.
yeah,
right, exactly.
Right.
I'm sure that'll be reviewed by the building department.
Is it-
That's not allowed.
is it going to be reviewed by?
Yes,
I think it has to be.
yes, it does.
Okay, then I'm fine. I'm good. As long as somebody's, we get this thing
I
with,
think actually Doug even said that he needed to talk to Mr. Gore about it.
Okay, that's fine.
Making
I mean-
a statement, so.
If there's been enough discussion, then I would entertain a motion.
make a motion to approve as discussed.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion from the board? Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Next is 220 Scranton Ave. And that's,
This was just. Across in front of you, do you have my form sheets over there?
Yes, I do.
Awesome, who's on 220?
this is the dredging project.
Same as last.
This is along,
This was just open for the DEP now.
This is true.
Mario, Mary, Russ, Tom, and Mike.
Yep, so this was just the dredging project, time of year restrictions in accordance with provision of marine fisheries. The only issue was the kind of vague, plan they had for, were they using a clamshell, where were they gonna dewater the soil? They said they were gonna do it on the adjacent property, they don't own the adjacent property, they've got town-owned property on one side and Falmouth Marine on the other. So that's when she said that we were gonna do it. Their original proposal was to do it from land, and then they backtracked and said we'll do it from a barge. So they really do need to kind of
Tighten up.
tighten up how they're coming in to do this.
Okay.
Because they're, or like I said, the original plan was to dewater the material on the adjacent site, which they have no control over. So they could get permission from the town to dewater on the parking lot if, you know, they're doing it at a time of year where, you know, that's fine. But I think that needs to be a special condition, is they really do need to let us know what their methodology is.
All right,
Okay.
yes. Are there any other points to be brought up, or any other discussion? Entertain a motion.
Yeah, I was gonna say entertain a motion. Make a motion to approve as discussed
Second?
With the special
with the
condition.
special conditions. Thank you. Special condition on the dewatering.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
We had a
Unanimous?
second on that, right, Harry?
Yep. Thank you.
Actually, I didn't know, I thought I did.
Like this? Or what?
We may not have had a
Pick
second.
someone, one of you seconded.
I'll second.
Mary did.
Make it 2 seconds, put it down. You can't over-second anything.
Next, we have 3
One
and,
special condition on the dredging, was they can use the material for beach showers.
that was part of the earlier
Yeah, that was
discussion.
discussed.
Yep, yes it was. 3 and 5 Ottawa Lane. This is the,
One of the big things was to, at all costs, protect that beach strip.
Oh, this is the
Yeah.
septic, this is the septic system, yeah.
yes,
Other than that, I don't think it was just a continuation of all the site work that's being done there. The Blue Flax proposal was just a continuation of the landscape management plan that we started on the other 5. And the special condition I seem to have written down is, you know, orange construction fencing around that beach strip. Do you think it needs a root barrier, Maria?
Putting in Title V and adding that garage.
Oh, and
This is
Tom,
a
you
big
wanted to know
house.
date and time, they were putting that tank in?
And doing
Yes.
something about-
Yep, I would like to be notified on that, because I'd just like to,
Yeah, mosquito.
What was that?
yeah.
Doing regrading for the mosquito pond.
Tank installation,
I think the good news is
protection of the beach strip. Do you think they can do it without,
As he described and what I saw on site, I wanted to hear him say it.
I
You know, and he's coming in from the upper side, and I feel pretty good. He said the right things. It's a 2-piece, so they're,
It's not gonna be easy, but
Yeah.
they can do that.
yes, yep.
And it's clear that the owner has as much respect for that tree as we do. So that's a good thing.
Yes,
Isn't like it's going to disappear.
and hopefully, Lake, get your feet
nobody will
wet.
notice?
Yeah, nobody will notice.
Okay.
All right,
Move to approve the order as discussed.
Second,
Mary making the motion and Mike making the second. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Mike did. Oh, well,
So
I'm
did
sorry.
Mary, you had to stereo it.
I said
You can't over-second it, I'm telling you, it's a good thing.
Thank you.
It is a tree, it belongs to our, it should come from Mario. I agree with that.
Okay, so that second came from Mario.
Second very often.
Next on the agenda
Has everybody gotten that?
is 120 Racing Beach Ave.
This is Raul's presentation for the long-running project at 120 Racing Beach Ave, which they are reconfiguring the driveway entrance to the property and reducing the patio in the back and modifying their mitigation plantings to reflect.
This is the indoor pool.
No,
No, that's the house with the indoor pool.
What was the next one? This was Raul's project.
Yep.
driveway configuration, remember he had the yellow and the orange and the
Yep.
pink, or the yellow and the pink?
Okay.
blue?
This
All
was
right.
an ongoing for,
You understand?
yes.
And they had that
Reconfiguration of the driveway.
mitigation area up
Yes.
in the right corner.
Correct.
Y'all remember that?
Remember?
Yes, I do, I'm back,
Yep.
We're talking about 120.
Yes.
120,
All right.
yeah.
Yes, we are.
And then in the back toward the top of the coastal bank, he was reducing the size of the patio, he was removing a section of that patio. So it's basically a meant to reconfigure all other conditions on that property always still stand unless you amend the permit to take away any special conditions, so. Although this has been a very long project, the staff doesn't have any particular heartburn with the reconfiguration of that driveway, so.
Do we have enough information to make a decision?
Move to approve the order as discussed.
Second?
I know that was Mary, and I know that was Mike. So, any other discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Last on the evening is 62A and 62B Racing Beach Ave.
This is to amend the existing permit to remove the pool.
Yep.
And then create the berm on the, on the property line between 120 and 62A and 62B. If you remember, the berm on the 120 Racing Beach side was done under an RDA earlier in the evening. So, little pieces that we put together. So Racing Beach was to remove the pool, adjust the mitigation plantings, reconfigure those patios and everything, and then create the berm with the planting area along the property line.
And they moved one of the paths.
Yes.
They moved the, John?
They had two paths, they took one
Yes,
path out.
they took one path.
And that was the path that went to nowhere.
Yep, that would be the one.
Mike, here, let me show you a plan.
Yeah, I wish you would.
Yeah, you've got that look.
Yeah, I know,
I have one here,
I'm the
Mike.
deer in the highlight there.
No, no, you had it right, you had the pool right. And then, you have the pool. So, and then this is the berm and the berm and the low stone wall and the berm in the planting area. This is 120, this is 62, and then here's the rest of the plan where they removed the pool that was originally sited in this area.
Outstanding. Do we have enough information to make a decision? Okay.
Move to approve the order as discussed.
Second.
We have
Kind of
Mary.
let Mario get a second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. That completes the agenda for this evening.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
That was Mary and
Third.
Mario. All right, all in favor?
Abstain.
Right.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mike's
abstention?
staying,
Abstain.
Mike is staying until
I abstain
12.
now.
So moved. Good night.